Hey there, everybody. It's Lauren from Attitude of Gratitude with Chronic Pain and Gratitude Addict. Thank you for tuning in tonight to a very big show for me. I have a special guest who I'll introduce in a minute, but what we do, this is episode 18 of our show, Gratefully Living the Chronic Life. And each week we touch on a topic that pertains to living with chronic conditions, not just physical, but emotional as well. So I think most people can relate to a lot of the things that we talk about. What Toni will be talking about is definitely relatable to everybody as well. So I'm so glad that you're all here. So let me introduce Toni before we go any further. We'll get to her interview first, but here's Toni Bernhard, who I'm a huge fangirl of. I'm kind of mushy and gushy when it comes to her. But I'll read you her bio. Toni Bernhard is the author of the award-winning How to Be Sick, a Buddhist-Inspired Guide for the Chronically Ill and Their Caregivers, How to Live Well with Chronic Pain and Illness, and How to Wake Up, a Buddhist-Inspired Guide to Navigating Joy and Sorrow. Until forced to retire due to illness, Toni was a law professor at the University of California, Davis, serving 6 years as the Dean of Students. She's been practicing Buddhism for over 25 years. Her popular blog, Turning Straw into Gold, is hosted by Psychology Today Online, and she can be found on the web at ToniBernhard.com. So, Toni, thank you so much for being here.
It's my pleasure, Lauren. I enjoy your site so much.
Thank you. I enjoy you too. I have to before I go any further, I just want to do a couple housekeeping things. If you are watching from inside the Facebook group, Attitude of Gratitude with Chronic Pain, when you log in to watch the show, it's going to ask you to grant permission for them to use your name and face. If you choose to comment, and we put it on the screen, if you don't grant that, you will come up as Facebook user, which is fine. But if you'd like, a little couple seconds of fame associated with your comment, if you can just click yes for that, I'll show you what it looks like. Let's see. Can I do this? Share screen, Chrome tab, StreamYard. No, that's not right. Wait, does that show anything? No. Okay. It's no, we got to get rid of that. Remove. And now I've got a small. See, Toni, I told you that every week there's something.
There's always something, eh?
it's
every
part
day
of my
there's
charm,
always something.
Part of our shtick. Let me try this again. Share screen. Okay, well, it's StreamYard.com/Facebook is what it is. You can go there if you haven't already granted access, and they will ask you again. And supposedly once you do it that once, you won't have to do it again, although that has been lying a little bit to me as well. So glad you're all here. I mentioned it's episode 18 already. We do this every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain, and 5 p.m. Pacific, which is where Toni is. Toni's 3 hours behind me. And I know it's kind of a witching hour, dinner time and all of that. So I'm so appreciative that you're here with us, Toni. My fangirl story is it was about probably 5 years ago, actually. I've got two of Toni's books here. I read this one, How to Live Well with Chronic Pain and Illness, a mindful guide. And what I was reading was so much in keeping with what we teach in Attitude of Gratitude with Chronic Pain, and what I personally believe in. It was very different from other chronic pain books that I read, and I became an instant fan. And I was a part of a group, and I don't even remember what group, Toni, but it was a very large chronic pain group that you were a part of as well. And there was the first time I saw you were there, and you posted one of your articles from Psychology Today. And I was like, Toni's in this group. Oh my God, I was freaking out. So somehow I got the guts to, I think, maybe private message you about this tiny little group that I started. It was very small at the time. Attitude of Gratitude with Chronic Pain, Facebook. I told her how much I loved her work. And then I think I may have sent you a link to join the group. Is that how you remember it?
Yeah.
Okay. And then my son goes to Penn State, and we were at a Penn State football game, and which is a stadium. They're I think the second or third largest sports stadium in the world. 108,000 people. I'm up in the back row or really close to it. And I see on my phone this notification come in. Toni Bernhard has asked to join your group. I flipped out. And my moderator, Jackie, at the time, I'm like, Toni has asked to be a part of the group. I was so honored. And she's been a member ever since. But we were pretty small back then. Yeah. And now we've got over 5,400 members, which I'm very proud of.
That's because of the good work you do, Lauren.
Thanks, Toni. That means a lot. Toni posts her articles in there, and just the fact that she thought our group worthy, I was very, very honored and humbled, and I still am. Before we go any further, we have some comments already. See if I can figure out how to do this. Oh, the first one is my niece, Campbell, Portland. Hi, Aunt Lauren. All of us are online and watching live. Hey, Soupy, Lindsay McKenna, Alexander, Jumpy, and Eric. Thank you for watching. Deborah Immer Scott. Hello, everyone. You know what? They look much smaller today. Let me try to change this.
I can read them. Can
you?
Yeah.
Usually, what if I do this? Does that change? There we go. That's better for our comments, at least. Karen Goldberg says, hi, Lauren. Hi, Toni. I'm so grateful for your book, Toni. Oh, my goodness. All these people are tuning in. So wonderful. Betty Whedon, this will be great. That's my Aunt Betty. I told you I put it on my personal page, too. So it's very nice that everybody's tuning in. Linda Edwards, who's one of the moderators of our group. Hello, Lauren and Toni. Margaret DeCarico Morris. Hi there. Hi, Margaret. This is just so wonderful. Campbell, again, all of us are watching live. Yes, you are. We are live, which is really cool if you want to chat, because I try every week to get to all of the comments. Because of Toni being here tonight and the amount of questions, I have no doubt that she will get. I'm going to do my best to get everybody's comment in. Oh gosh, Noelle Gray. Hi, Noelle. Thanks for being here. It's the daughter of my best friend who passed away a couple months ago. Linda Canalicchio. Hi, Lauren. It's me, Linda from Philly. Good to be here. This should be interesting. I've been a Buddhist 46 years now. Hi, Toni. I will look you up. 46
Longer
years.
than I have been.
How long have you been a Buddhist, Toni?
Well, it's getting close to 30 years.
I want to ask you about that and how that came to be. Campbell says, hi, Aunt Lauren. It's so exciting to meet Ms. Toni and hear about all of her accomplishments. Thank you so much for having her. Thank you, Campbell. And Tracy Bergers is here. She's my best friend from high school. This Facebook user, which this is what I was talking about. If you don't grant Facebook StreamYard exit, it comes up as that, which is fine if you don't mind. But if you'd like to have your name show up, go back StreamYard.com/Facebook, and that should take that off. Absolutely swear by the book, How to Be Sick, life-changing. Look at that. That must be very humbling to read.
It really is. And I had no idea the book would have the impact it has.
And tonight you've got a new edition, which we'll talk about. Paula Land, just been referred to pain clinic for fibro. Well, welcome, Paula. Fibro is no easy thing to deal with. So I'm glad you're here. Brian Daniel Hughes, watching from a diner. This looks like an excellent talk. All I can say is that a sound meditative practice helps make you accepting of the way things are. One Buddhist monk said that you have to feel pain, but you don't have to suffer. Brian, much luck. Brian, that is exactly what our group stands for. I never say suffer any longer. I say struggle, because suffer is a way you think about it, in my opinion. Struggle's very real, but you don't have to suffer. Thanks for being here, Brian. Arlene Hildred, hello. Hi, Arlene. She's a moderator for the group also. Monica Lane, hi, everyone. Toni, thank you for your book. One of my favorite takeaways that I often say to myself, there's sickness here, but I'm not sick. Ooh, that's good. Very nice. And my parents, Mimi and Pop-Up, are here and very proud. Thanks, Mom and Dad. Very, very sweet. So, Toni, obviously we have a lot of Buddhists here.
And your relatives.
Yeah, and a lot of relatives. I'm a lucky girl for sure. Let me get these coming. There we go. Maybe this would be a good spot for you to kind of talk about your background, how you came to be part of the chronic illness community and have your own chronic illness, and kind of from there where you are today. Why don't you explain that to us?
Well, it's been almost 20 years now. But
you and I have been sick for the exact same amount of time.
19 years in May, my husband and I took a trip to Paris, from California, which was a big deal for us, not really world travelers. And the second day there, I got sick. And we just thought it's likely I picked something up on the plane.
Because I don't think so, huh? Yeah.
And it appeared to be just a run-of-the-mill viral infection. And, I had rented a studio apartment for 3 weeks. The idea was we would immerse ourselves in the culture of Paris.
That's nice.
And the days went by and I didn't get better. And, we said, well, okay, not 3 weeks, but 2 weeks. And actually at one point did go to a doctor there who said, well, I think it's a viral infection, but here, have some antibiotics just in case it's bacterial. And I appeared to recover for a few weeks. And then I had a relapse when we were back in California, just as I was getting ready to start teaching. I live in Davis and I taught at the university here. And I never recovered from that relapse. And so the way I describe it to people is that I feel as if I have the flu without the fever 24/7. So if you think about how you feel when you have the flu, you just can't be up for very long.
Yeah.
One doctor said it's as if when you sleep at night, your battery only recharges 50%. So you start the day already down 50%.
Oh, that's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah. So this is something that is in the news today because it seems to be that this viral infection somehow compromised my immune system, and it's just dysfunctional. And some of the people who are getting COVID-19, they've been called, they have a label for it. They call it long haulers, where they say that not everybody, thankfully, but a large percentage find that weeks or months down the line, they still feel a lot of the symptoms that I experienced. It's not a fatigue as if I never go to sleep in front of the TV or reading or anything. It's a kind of a sickly fatigue, that kind of fatigue you feel when you have the flu. And so I had to give up my profession, just couldn't keep it up. I tried going back part-time, which was a mistake. My husband would he works in a different town. He would drive to Davis, pick me up, take me to school, pick me up after my classes. And I couldn't keep it up. And, some of that was denial, because everyone gets the flu. And when you get sick, I thought you're supposed to get better. And of course you do.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just my expectations, but people with the best of intentions, my colleagues in the hallways would say, are you better yet? And they wouldn't notice that I was leaning against the wall to hold myself up. So
because you looked fine on the outside, right?
Yeah, which is very common with chronic pain, especially. People look fine. And it was an eye-opening to me, because I hadn't been sensitive to that. And then I realized, and I actually talked with some of the staff people where I taught, and realized one of them had very painful fibromyalgia.
Mm.
Well, I had known her for 10 years, and I had no idea, because she looked fine. So I don't make assumptions about people.
Yeah, you're certainly not expecting it when you get it. You and I don't know if we've talked about this before, but we got sick at exactly the same time. And similar stories too. I had, I think it was parvovirus, which brought out all of this stuff in me. And you don't expect. They gave me antibiotics as well, because they thought it was Lyme disease.
I had probably 4 different kinds of it. They didn't know what to do, because there are no, there are no medications. I mean, there are some medications for viruses, but not the kinds of flu virus type things. I guess they have Tamiflu now, but there's a lot of antibiotics, and they tried them all. So here I am. It was 19 years in May.
And then when did you start writing about it? I think your story about how you started writing is interesting.
Yeah. At the time I got sick, I had been practicing Buddhist for 10 years. I had a twice-a-day meditation practice. I would try to go on maybe 1 or 2 10-day retreats during the year. And I have to say that Buddhism is kind of lumped into one category, but there are lots of different types of Buddhist practice, not just Zen and Tibetan, but people have different intentions. I don't practice Buddhism as a religion, which is why my books don't conflict with any religion.
Right.
For me, it's a practical path, because I just found that Buddha's insights into particularly how the mind works. I think the Dalai Lama called him the great psychologist. He just had a lot of insight into the conditions of life and the way the mind works. But I have to say that despite that 10 years of practice, the first 4 or 5 years of being sick were pretty dark periods for me. I like to say the Buddha's teachings were waiting in the wings, because I fell into a pretty deep, not a deep depression, but depression, because I blamed myself for what was happening. Everyone around me expected me to get better.
Mm-hmm.
I expected me to get better. I thought, what's wrong with me that I can't get better? And I slowly but surely, I think maybe I found a little a spiral notebook in which I'd written down some stuff over the years from the Buddha that I'd read. And I realized that a lot of what he said could be helpful to me. And starting right out with what probably everyone has heard of, the First Noble Truth, which people often mistranslate as life is suffering. What the Buddha does in the First Noble Truth, I label the chapter in my book on that. The Buddha tells it like it is. What he says is, you're born, and life is, he makes a list of all the life experiences that, to be frank, are unpleasant ones. And on that list is illness, aging, being separated from what you love. And that happened to me when I had to leave my job. I thought, my God, well, who am I if I'm not a teacher? That's who I'd been.
Right.
And then in case he left anything off his list, he had getting what you don't want and not getting what you want. And, there was some point during this illness when I read that and I said, oh, he's describing this life as I understand it. It doesn't mean that there isn't joy and happiness, but that part of the human condition includes injury and illness and aging and being separated from people you love and all of those things. And it was a relief to realize it wasn't just me, that this was a life experience that everybody, this is part of life's experience.
Right.
Somehow, instead of making me feel bad, it made me feel better, because I realized I was living life as it's supposed to unfold, as a mixture of getting what I wanted and not getting what I wanted. And
was it him that said pain times resistance equals suffering?
No, it was one of his teachers. There are a lot of teachers around today. Pema Chodron is one of the very major teachers who talks a lot about, she'll say things like, suffering is just resistance to life. And so yeah, the Buddha was, his teachings were in the oral tradition, and then they were written down later. Okay, and the way they're written down can be a little stodgy. And so, but understandable. So a lot of modern teachers have come up with pithy sayings we can remember that weren't words out of his mouth, but kind of based on his teachings. And so that was the first thing that struck me. And at that point, I started letting what I'd learned in those previous 10 years, now it had been 15, I was about 5 years into the illness. And I don't know if this is the story you're referring to, but I actually took my laptop and pulled it over in front of me on my bed, which is where I'm sitting now. And I opened a Word document and I wrote, "How to be sick."
Really?
Yeah. And
I knew you started writing. But,
yeah, maybe the Buddha can teach me. Yeah. And I said, well, that's a nice idea. Too bad I'm too sick to do anything with it. And I closed it up. But I did go back and I really started writing for myself. But I showed it to a few people who were also suffering from chronic pain, chronic illness. And they're the ones who said, there's a book here. And I thought, oh, and I prepared a book with chapters, and I wrote, and so
that's amazing.
And I discovered so much of the Buddha's teachings were resonating with me. Today there's a lot in the culture about mindfulness, and it has perhaps many different meanings. It's entered the mainstream culture, but it was a principal part of his teaching. And what I've it what I've discovered about mindfulness practice, for me, the most valuable thing is that I'm working on becoming mindful of what's going on in the mind, in my mind, because that's where the suffering is. That you know, things are the way they are, and there certainly we can take constructive action sometimes to make them better or to find joy, but there's a lot in life that we don't control. And
And we
one of the
want to so badly, don't
what?
we want
Oh
to
yeah,
control it so badly, and we think we should be able to do this. When I
yeah,
got diagnosed and got sick, I didn't have a single doctor say, maybe you should join the support group, or maybe you should talk to somebody. It was just, here's the medications that you need, and you'll probably have this for life. And so that's why I started the group, Attitude of Gratitude with Chronic Pain,
yeah.
because I wanted to work on the emotional stress and pain. Sometimes the emotional pain can be worse than the physical, right? Um,
Absolutely, and that's why I was saying that this mindfulness. I work on seeing what's going on in my mind, because a lot of that emotional pain comes from not not living the moment as it is, and getting I call it lost in la la land, where you're thinking about the future, you're worrying about how you came off in the past, you're worrying about what the future holds.
mhm.
Of course, with COVID-19, you know, I worry. I'm not.
Sure.
I well, it's the uncertainty can be a source of worry. Just how long is this
Absolutely.
on, and will my family and loved ones be safe? And but when you get into that kind of groove, it's like you're digging a groove into the mind, and you start telling yourself these stories and projecting into the future, um, when in fact we don't know the future.
Right.
And so when I find myself using mindfulness practice, saying, "Oh, I'm I'm telling myself all these stories about what could happen," when in fact I don't know what's going to happen, but what I can do is be here now. And I know that's the name of a book,
Yeah.
but it's not a bad title. Um, what I can do is bring myself back to the present moment. And I often do that with mindful breathing, just taking maybe 3 in breaths and 3 out breaths. And it brings me to the moment. And, even if it's not a pleasant moment, maybe I'm experiencing some pain, I'm able to say, I'm okay right now. What wasn't okay, what was making me unokay, was all that worrying about the future and having regrets about the past. Oh, the things I used to be able to do and I can't do them anymore. Life isn't fair. And well, life isn't fair.
No,
Life,
it's not.
life is life.
Right.
So,
So we want to learn how to, deal with it as
yeah,
fulfillingly, and wholeheartedly as possible. Because, when you can bring yourself back to that present, you realize, all right, this particular moment is not going to, it's not going to last forever.
right.
Um, and
Yeah.
yeah, so how can I be happy and, serene with this moment, right?
Sometimes just bringing yourself into the moment by maybe taking some three, I call it 3 breath practice in the book. It's actually something I got from my husband, who
Oh, yeah.
used to teach mindfulness
His
at
name's Tony, by the way.
Yeah, his name is Tony too. He used to teach mindfulness to prisoners at Folsom Prison, and that's a
Oh,
program
wow.
that, of course, has been shut down by COVID-19. But he, oh, a prisoner would say to him, I can't sit there and meditate. And he would say, well, could you take 3 breaths? So I'm very grateful to him, and I adapted it, and I call it 3-breath practice. And it brings you to the moment and gives you the opportunity to see if there's something to enjoy about this moment. It takes you out of all those painful stories, mostly these days, about possible future scenarios when in fact we don't know the future. That's a very tough lesson to learn, I guess.
Right.
Maybe if we each had one wish, it would be to control the future,
Sure.
but it's not going to happen.
No,
And
and
so,
it robs us of the peace that we could be having right now.
yeah,
And that worrying doesn't change how it's actually going to turn out.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I find a lot of the times when I bring myself to the moment, to what's happening right now, it is a peaceful place to be because your mind is not off making up scenarios or regretting the past or wishing you could do that or wishing you could do that. You're just here. And even if it's a painful moment, it's physically painful, it's easier to be with without all the stories, such as this pain will never go away. Well,
Yeah.
I know that.
Yeah.
Tomorrow may be better. So that's another Buddhist practice that's been very helpful to me. And I guess the third one that stands out is his teachings on compassion, which of course are not, these are teachings that most spiritual and religious traditions teach. So this is not something that's unique to his teaching. But what I've learned is that a lot of people, they write to me and they say, well, I find it easy to be compassionate towards others, to help them and try to alleviate their suffering. But I don't think I deserve compassion. I've done all these things wrong in my life and I've hurt these people. And, my advice there is clean slate and just start right now.
Right.
And the way to start is to self-compassion is very simple. It just means being kind to yourself. And
we deserve that as much as we think we don't deserve that. We do deserve that.
Well, I think everybody does.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it doesn't mean, of course, there's value. In my view, there's value in reflecting on past behavior and saying, whoa, I could have handled that better. But that's not the same as blaming yourself and saying, oh, I always mess up. That's a very different mindset. And so when you're able to speak to yourself, I actually recommend that people come up with phrases that speak to the pain or to the mental suffering, I call it, of the moment. It's so hard not to know how long we're going to be sheltering in place, or when there's going to be a vaccine. This is hard.
It is hard for everybody.
When you express that to yourself, it's hard. Instead of saying, what's wrong with you? You just roll with the punches like everybody else is. That comparing mind that always makes us feel bad. When you are able to express how sad you are about something or how hard something is, it alleviates that pain because you're you're showing yourself that you care about your suffering. You care about your struggles. I think you use the word struggles. You
I do,
care.
yeah.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah. I try to not say suffering.
And it's amazing how that can lead you to a place of calm and peacefulness.
So do you recommend repeating it like a mantra?
Well, I do that. I don't, but the things that I'm feeling sad about or that are hard for me are always changing. So it's not like I have one mantra,
Right.
but my our son and family live a little over an hour away, and we haven't seen them since this started because, particularly because of my illness, and I am in the at-risk age group.
Yeah.
We're extremely careful. And so we've thought about having them drive up and meeting at a park, which we could do, but I haven't actually asked them to do that because they've got it's hard for them too. I have a 13-year-old granddaughter who just started classes online, and what she'd really like to do is hang out with her friends.
Of course. That's
Yeah.
big at 13.
It's a tough age.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my son is working from home, but he's working really hard. So those things, there's a tendency to always want to compare how things are going for you, for what you hear about other people, but you tend to hear the best. No one knows what's really going on.
That's true, on Facebook especially.
Dwelling
in the group, that's what we never complain. It's an anti-complaining group, not because I feel like complaining is invaluable, because we must vent with people. But I was telling Toni earlier today that I wanted a place where people could go 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and just not have to hear any negative. So we do a lot of positive quotes and a lot of the things that Toni's talking about. And I want everybody to be on the same even playing field. And when people start talking about their different struggles, conditions, it's very easy to compare. I'm not as bad as this one. This one's not as bad as me. That comparing is really, can really be a problem, like you just said.
It can be. I've written about that as comparing mine. Nothing will depress you more than comparing your situation with other people's situations, because everybody's life is a mixture of things that are really tough and things that are joyful. And sometimes you have to create that joy, but you can do it. And one of the ways you can do it is by accepting the difficulties as difficulties.
Sure.
I'm not there's the kind of movement as all positive thinking. And I don't find that works for most people, because all of us have our off days.
Sure.
And and you can so you have a choice. You can blame yourself, and I don't know any value that comes out of self-blame. Self-reflection as to how you might do something differently another time, yes, but not self-blame. And so on those days when there's just not a lot of joy around you, particularly in this COVID-19 environment,
right?
Those days, that calls for self-compassion, not self-blame. And find the words that speak to how you're feeling that day. It's really hard to be stuck inside, and I'm really stuck inside because we've got fires in California and our
Oh,
air,
are you close to that?
we're not in danger of fires. We
Okay,
do
good.
know people who've had their houses burned down, but
Yes.
our air is terrible
Yes,
because
I've heard.
we're in a valley. And so right now, I think it's red, which is unhealthy for healthy groups. So we have this kind of double whammy going,
Right.
which has not been, which has made things difficult.
Sure, I bet.
But so, on a day when you just feel, uh, you just can't feel positive about things, uh, go to self compassion and go ahead and talk to yourself about how lousy it feels. And in my experience, giving voice to how difficult things are and maybe how sad you feel, and maybe you're grieving, COVID-19 aside, just chronic pain and illness, maybe you're grieving for that life that you don't have anymore. People think you grieve and then you're done.
No,
It can come
it's an
back.
ongoing thing, isn't
It
it?
can come back.
Yes.
But when it comes back, instead of either self-blame, or the other thing people do is just push it away in aversion, pretend it's not there. That doesn't work for me either.
Mm-hmm.
Self-compassion works. Taking refuge in impermanence of all things works, in the sense that you can say, this is not my best day, but tomorrow's another day.
Right.
And or this evening's another evening, and then maybe looking for some things that are soothing for that day. So I'm not one of those rah, always positive, always positive. In the sense, I understand with your group that you want people to share those positives, but the fact is that uh, there aren't that we all have days we're when we're a little blue or down, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No, there isn't. It's normal.
And that's why I like to say that this the Buddha talked a lot about impermanence, and again, that's not a Buddhist thing. Impermanence, constant change. Everyone, if you think about it, knows that that's part of life. And we tend to think of it as a negative, but I like to say that the universal law of impermanence can be your friend because
Because sometimes we're pleasantly surprised with
yeah,
what happens, for sure.
and any emotions, like thoughts, they arise based on conditions in your life, and sometimes past conditioning. They arise and they pass. Nothing's permanent.
Right.
That's why I say, I use in How to Be Sick that weather metaphor. The weather's always changing. And so there's no reason to assume that the way you feel today it is going to be the way you'll feel tomorrow. Because I like that about life. That helps me a lot, recognizing that this may be a blue day, so it's a blue day. I'll take good care of myself until it passes.
Sure. In my good night post every night in the group, I tell people to, put today behind us and look forward to tomorrow with hope. Hope is such a really strong word too. We always have hope. And, we can be excited about that hope even, and then, wake up the next day and we'll see what happens.
And it's that law of impermanence, this constant change, that allows us to have hope.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So I like that. Yeah.
I like that too. I realized I forgot. Every week I wear a different T-shirt relating to gratitude. Eventually I'm going to run out and I'm not going to have new ones. But this one's hard to read. It says, we can choose to be grateful no matter what.
Yeah.
So that's I have to go with my little list every week. Nope, wore that one with that, wore that one. But wearing a silly gratitude T-shirt gives me hope, gives me, just remind me that even though there are bad things happening and I feel really lousy, I have so many things to be grateful for. And and even when you're not feeling all that grateful, if you can state things that you're grateful for, eventually it's gratitude's like a muscle, they say, don't they? The more you work it. And then, there's just little tips like this and what you explain in your books, what we talk about in the group, any little tips to help you live this life today at this very moment, right?
And to make a new life for yourself with chronic pain, chronic illness, it's just part of that life. And so it doesn't mean you can't do anything. It means there's a lot of things you can't do. But rather than, sometimes it took me a few years to get to this place, but rather than you use the word complaining, constantly complaining and bemoaning what you can't do, look for what you can do, whether it's something creative. Well, a lot of times it's something creative. I guess I look at book writing as creative.
And you paint too, don't you?
I do. I have a lounge chair in the living room that I put it back a little bit, and I don't paint big things. I just have a little tablet in front of me with some watercolors on the side, and I play with that almost every morning. And it's made a huge difference in my life. And I throw away a lot of the stuff. That's watercolor. Anyone who works in watercolor knows you have to be ready.
I've started that myself. It's very forgiving, but it's all, I'm not artistic by nature. So, but it's
the colors are beautiful, and it brings me joy to do that. And so you can, part of what, so a lot of people can't get to that place of creating a new life until they accept this chronic health issue that is just going to be part of their life. Even though a lot of people, it gets better, it gets worse. I happen to have, mine is relentlessly the same every day. Even within that, so I say, okay, this is how I'm just not going to feel well. And that limits what I can do. In the same way that someone in pain, and I have pain issues too, some days I'm in pain and I, can't move a particular limb or something. And I work around it because this is my life.
Right.
And I want to make the best of it, both by helping other people and by finding joy myself.
And you pass it on. I believe that doing service in whatever way we can, like you're doing, is just, you mentioned before that people think they can have self-compassion for a friend, but they can't do it for themselves. But when you do service work, you're doing both because you feel good, and it doesn't mean necessarily slopping things into a bowl in a soup kitchen. It can be many things. It could be making a nice comment to somebody online who really needs it.
Absolutely, it's amazing. Just a little comment. Sometimes I'll get an email from someone who's read my book, and it's a bit of an effort to respond by email because I say a little comment. Sometimes I get like
I did that to you yesterday.
Lines, and that can be difficult, but it's I'll write something back, and then they write back and say, "Oh, I can't believe you wrote back to me." And so you don't realize I have one of the little practices in how to be sick is something I got from a Buddhist teacher named Sharon Salzberg, and some of people listening will know because she's written
She's wonderful
on loving kindness, um, and she suggests that you follow through on that first impulse to be kind or to be generous to another, because we often try to talk ourselves out of it, and I remember a colleague whose father died, and I thought, well, maybe I'll send him a card. And then I thought, oh no, he's going to get a lot of cards. Nobody sends cards again. And I remembered Sharon's comment, and I thought, okay, you had that initial intention to be kind to this person. You got to do it. And he wrote me back a card and said how much he appreciated my card. So that's a really good little practice.
it is. We have a journaling club. We have a challenge that we did
good
last month. We call Happy Mail, and just people could sign up and send each other cards, and when you send somebody a letter or a card and you actually write it out, it's so mindful, like you talk about. It's because you're focusing on that person, completely on that person, while you're doing it, while you're writing the envelope, the stamp. And then when somebody gets that, and I've gotten it from several members, it feels so fantastic because we know that person was thinking of us.
Yeah.
So that's a great way to do service work.
Yeah. And it's just interesting to pay attention to the ways you can often try to talk yourself out of that initial inspiration to be generous. And so try following through.
That's a good point, talking yourself out of it. I'd never thought of that before, but you're right. So we have a few questions for you. Well, we have a couple highs too. Julia, welcome, Julia.
Right.
Jill Cook, who actually, she wrote me a letter today, which I haven't opened yet. Oh. Thank you, Jill. She's really good at sending me articles and stuff. Thank you, Jill. Glad you're here. Arlene, letting go of control, that was a challenge. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Pamela Creighton, thank you for your insights, Toni. I journal in the third person, and for me, it allows best access to self-compassion. I may have messed up StreamYard, says Pamela Creighton here. No, you've got it right, Pamela. You're good.
You got it right. That's a very good idea. Yeah.
Oh, gosh, we don't have your name. But somebody says, Toni, you are my idol. That's so nice. Thank you, Facebook user.
Yeah.
Robin Davis, hi, just got home. I think I may have missed I missed several. I am getting so much out of this. Thank you. From Deborah, who's also another moderator in our group. I miss all of these. Mendy Graff Jeffrey says, don't know how I stumbled onto this, but it is amazing, and I'm suddenly feeling blessed.
Wonderful.
Doesn't that feel good?
Yes, it does.
Mendy, I'm very glad you're here. We're very glad you're here, and glad that Toni can help you. She helps a lot of people, and she's very, very humble about it. Heidi Presser says, I learned that meaning love yourself, love your neighbor as yourself, means that first you need to love yourself and then love others, which can be hard to do, can't it? But you're right, Heidi.
It can be hard to do. And that's why I write about it so much. I write about the inner critic that many of us have. And a lot of that, the reason it's hard to love ourselves, that can come from childhood conditioning, where maybe we had strict parents who always said, well, that's not good enough. That's not good enough. Or some other influential person in our life. And so that's where, Lauren, you say, wipe the slate clean, start over.
Right.
And just recognize that some of these, when you say, well, I just can't be nice to yourself, say, oh, I bet that's just a habit from prior conditioning. And so I can form a new habit. Have that faith, because you can. It takes attention and a bit of work, but you can change the habits that make you unhappy. Yeah.
Right. I know we do that with gratitude, as I just talked about, but that's a interesting. We could do that with other things too. That's really interesting. Give me food for thought. Jen Leo says, "So happy you're here." COVID really is a challenge for a lot of people. Absolutely, not just people with chronic conditions, but there's so many struggles out there. People with their children home and they've got to work, and there's a lot of depression and chronic pain often go hand in hand. It's very normal for that to happen, but I believe there's a lot of depression for others too. There's so many struggles, but if we can learn to take it day by day, it may make ourselves.
And I just want to say, there's no reason to wallpaper over this COVID-19 as happy daisies all the time. It's hard. Some days are really hard, and sometimes the news is really hard when you hear, oh, this place opened back up and now it has to shut down again because there's new cases. And so there's frustration. It's hard.
It is. And then the empathy we have for others. Also, we take on, empaths, we take on other people's pain and we pile it on top of our own. That can be a lot to handle.
And worry about family and friends, and it's hard.
Yeah. All right. I think we've got everything there. So, no. English and journalism degrees leave me defenseless for mail. She's the one that sent me the letter. Jen Leo says that inner critic gets me.
Yeah, there's a interesting, there's lots of ways to deal with the inner critic. Of course, one is to simply recognize that it's a habit that you can change. This is a little thing from the Buddha, who said the mind is like the balsam tree. It's flexible. And so don't think that any of your painful habits are set in stone. You can change. And there's a wonderful little practice with the inner critic where when it shows up, you kind of pretend you're putting it on a stage and you're in the audience and you're listening to it. And just making, someone else said, I journal by using the word you. Well, this is a similar thing, because suddenly there's that person on the stage saying things that are going to sound ridiculous. And so there are lots of techniques. And and
we kind of have to change, I think, in order to move forward. You've talked a lot about acceptance, and boy, that acceptance, I believe I have to come to a place of acceptance every single day, a new acceptance.
Sometimes acceptance is seen as a kind of acceptance, as that kind of resignation, but it's not. True acceptance is freeing, because it's a way of saying, this is how my life is now.
Now what? Then you can move forward with the now what.
You're also freed from that constant desire and wishing that it be different.
Right.
Not a day goes by that I don't have that come up in my mind. Oh, I wish this were different. I wish that were different. Yeah. But the more you pay attention, the more you can catch those thoughts earlier in the process, or earlier in your mental process, and say, oh, I sometimes say things like, oh, there's that inner critic again. Oh, again, that's sort of that doing that third party thing. But true acceptance it's not a resignation, it's freeing.
Right. Yeah. Right. I think that's what people have a hard time with, is they do think it's a resignation. I don't want to give up that I ever, I want to get better someday, which maybe you will, maybe you won't. But, you know, the acceptance, you're only accepting it for what it is right now.
Right.
Right.
Oh, I would love to wake up tomorrow morning and not be sick. I haven't. So it's not resignation.
Yes. Yeah. And then we can move forward with all these other things. And you mentioned grief too. We go through grief for things that, abilities that we lose. And, it can, over time, you can lose more and more abilities, get more and more diagnoses piled onto us. And so you have to go through it all again.
Yes. It recurs.
Yeah.
And something can just trigger it too. With somebody mentioning something. Well, I jogged, 2 miles today, and I was never a jogger, but maybe you were once. And so that can trigger that. And that's fine to be able to say, well, I'm sad that I can't do that anymore, but I can't.
Right.
To be able to say, but I can't. Not with resignation.
Were you painting before you got sick?
What?
Were you painting before you got sick?
I had, but way back.
Oh,
and
okay.
in watercolor.
I was just going to say, the new things can come out if you give them a try.
The watercolor is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can start a Facebook group. You can write a book or several books.
Right.
Let me read one more comment, and then we're actually at the hour already. Monica Elaine, I found that the posts on 3 things we did well today, which we do in our group, have really helped me with the voice of my inner critic. They help me look for the good and reframe my view of myself.
That's very good. Yeah.
Yeah. So before we leave, I promised Toni I wouldn't let it go longer than an hour because, we're sick, and I know we could go several more hours because it's fascinating stuff. But I want to have you talk a little bit about how to be sick. This is a new edition. This is the original How to Be Sick. And now you have, it's not a pocket edition, it's a pocket companion.
Yeah, and I'll tell you real quickly why it's not a pocket edition. Because my publisher asked, would I like to turn the bigger book into a little pocket edition or pocket guide, right? And I said, okay. And my editor said, well, I'll send you a couple other ones. These are the ones you see at the checkout counter. Right. And when I looked at it, I realized that each page has a complete thought or suggestion or idea. And so I thought, oh, I'll just take the big book and edit it down. No, I had to write a whole new book. Because in the book, for example, self-compassion, say, I may write for 7-8 pages, tell a few anecdotes, do this and that.
So this pocket edition is going to be this thick, right?
Yeah. So the good part of that is that I really feel I've distilled these ideas, equanimity, which we didn't talk about, but that's really the kind of acceptance we've been talking about, right? This positive acceptance, and equanimity and self-compassion and mindfulness and a lot of other things. There's a section in the book on loneliness and dealing with a new diagnosis or treatments that don't help. But I had to get my thoughts into a very small space. And anyone who's a writer knows that editing, taking things out that you've written, you hate doing that. Editing down is the hardest part. But what comes out of it is really succinct writing. And so, so they changed the name to Pocket Companion because it isn't really a pocket edition. I hope
it's a new little book. I just want to read you guys something, a section from Toni's book in her introduction in this edition. You can't always choose the challenges you'll have to face in life, but you can learn not to let those challenges diminish you. Finding a measure of peace and happiness depends not on the state of your health, but on how you respond to it. If you respond with bitterness and anger, you become a bitter and angry person. And that adds a layer of mental suffering to the difficulties you're already facing. I was knocked over when I read that. It's so true, and it's such a wonderful way to look at it.
And Lauren, it reminds me of your talking about this gratitude muscle. I think you could say that about a self-compassion muscle. In this, that's what I was trying to say, where if you always respond in anger, you become an angry person.
Right.
You always respond with compassion, you become a compassionate person.
And it's very easy to become an angry person. There's a lot to be angry about.
Yeah.
It
tends, everyone needs to vent once in a while.
Sure.
But ongoing anger it makes you feel worse.
It does.
Physically and mentally.
Absolutely.
And rarely and it clouds over your ability to make constructive changes in your life.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I'd never heard of that. Let me, I just want to share where you can find Toni, some of the places where you can find Toni. We've got, can we see that?
My website. Got my
It's your
daughter's
website. Yes.
Yeah.
ToniBernhard.com. And she's got a wonderful website here with things about her books and more about how to live well. It's wonderful. Let me find. We didn't even mention Psychology Today. You have a blog on Psychology Today called Turning Straw into Gold.
I write mostly about chronic illness there. I've been doing that for nine years.
And what did you tell me yesterday, that you've written 265 articles about? Yeah.
And the funny thing is, my husband's going to laugh at this. I think he's watching in the next room. I'm always saying to him, I'm running out of topics. I can't find anything else to write about, but I always manage to.
New ones come up. I had wanted to ask you about the topics too, but we're already 10 minutes over.
Yeah.
It's always so wonderful talking to you. I just want to put this up. This is Toni's blog, Turning Straw into Gold. ToniBernhard.com.
If you get to ToniBernhard.com, my daughter put a little link up there. It says Psychology Today blog. And if you click on that, it'll take you and you can scroll through my pieces. And if something resonates with you, click on it.
There's something for everybody, and not just people with chronic pain and illness either. My Facebook group is Attitude of Gratitude with Chronic Pain. We'd love to have you. And gosh, Toni, I can't believe it's been an hour already. It goes so fast, but I thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here tonight.
I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. The fangirl will be harassing you for another interview very soon, I'm sure. Thank you, everybody who tuned in live, and whether you watched or contributed or both. Thank you. And this will be recorded. This has been recorded, so you can watch the playback, pass it on to your friends. So thank you, everybody. Peace and love. Thank you, Toni.
Bye.
Bye.